Let's bring in Jerry Roberts, who wrote the biography for the late senator, along with a piece today in the Washington Post titled "Dianne Feinstein Defied the Odds in a Field Perpetually Dominated by Men." Isn't that the truth? Jerry Roberts, so great to have you. You know, back when Senator Feinstein was the first female mayor in San Francisco, she had said that she learned a very important political lesson, and that was that her leadership shouldn't be about being politically correct, but rather about what works and solves the problem at hand. How did she start to do that early on, from being by Harvey Milk's side to swaying Supreme Court nominations?
Well, Kira, thanks. You know, if you go back to the beginning of her career, the first time she was elected in 1969, which is where the Post piece takes off, I mean, there's just extraordinary sexism that it's really hard to imagine now. So she ran for mayor twice and was defeated in 1971 and 75. And it wasn't until the assassinations, when she announced that to the nation in that dramatic moment that we've all seen replayed, excuse me, this morning, that she became the mayor. And it was her centrist politics that had cost her those two earlier elections. San Francisco was very polarized to kind of the way the nation is today at the time, between older white ethnic conservative homeowners and the sort of the new population that was coming in, more minority, more gay, and so on. And she kind of got caught in the middle of that. But when that horrible tragedy, twin tragedies, happened, and she led the city through that, in a remarkable demonstration of leadership and calming the emotions that had been risen, her politics really got a second look. And the pragmatism that she brought to office, the kind of non-ideological independence. You know, one of her contemporaries, former Congressman John Burton, said, Dianne was never in politics, she was in government. And she really tried to govern as mayor, and then, of course, later in the Senate. But when she left office in 1988, the Chronicle, where I was, San Francisco Chronicle, where I was working at the time, did a poll, and she had 70% approval rating, 70% after being in office for 9 years, which was really quite a remarkable testament to the way that her politics caught on, and people really liked that pragmatic approach.
Pragmatic approach and how it caught on. You know, you just mentioned the late 70s. I don't think a lot of people remember that it was Dianne Feinstein that actually rushed to help the openly gay supervisor, Harvey Milk, after he was assassinated alongside with the mayor at the time. She actually reached for his pulse, Harvey Milk's pulse. And it was that poise and pressure, as you mentioned, that took her to this whole new level of leadership that day. She was present, she was there. And then if you follow her time as mayor, you saw her in the gloves and the heels, in the thick of things, in the housing developments, in the homeless shelters, at the disasters. She was present at the scene.
Yeah, she was. And, you know, she used to carry a fire department turnout coat in the trunk of her car. And if she happened to be driving somewhere, she would put the coat on and talk to the battalion chief that was in charge of the fire. She rather famously stopped her driver one time in the Tenderloin, in the kind of seedy area of the city, when she saw a man passed out on the sidewalk dying, and did mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So she had a very, very personal approach to politics, and many of her political stances really derived from her personal experience. You know, in her early years before she was elected, she served on a women's parole board that oversaw all of the women inmates in the state of California. And she famously said that her view on the death penalty was shaped by that, because a woman came before the board one day, and she had taken place in an armed robbery, but she had taken an unloaded gun in. And Dianne asked her why the gun was unloaded. And the woman said, because she didn't want to be involved in a shooting and get the death penalty. And Dianne really began to believe that in the death penalty then as a great deterrent. Of course, many years later, she changed that position, but it was something that really was characteristic and defined her largely in California politics for many years. So she really did combine the personal and the political in a way that was unique.
Indeed. And, you know, when you wrote the book, Dianne Feinstein, Never Let Them See You Cry, what did you learn about her that you will never forget and that actually led to that title?
The new stuff that really surprised me and I think had not really been previously reported was the story of her childhood and her abusive mother, who was both physically and emotionally abusive to Dianne and her two younger sisters, one of whom her mother tried to drown in the bathtub when Dianne was still in grade school. So she acted as a shield for her sisters to protect them, excuse me, against her mother. And her father, she idolized. He was a very prominent neurosurgeon in San Francisco, but he kind of kept his distance from all of the mess that was going on at home. And so I thought really of her strength, her perseverance, and her ability to continue to put on a strong public face in the face of all of this private turmoil that was taking on in her life. And it was something that repeated again and again when her beloved second husband, Bert Feinstein, died. She went to work the next day and the day after that, even though he had had an anguishing and lingering death. So she always said to women in the early 80s, when she was being held up as a role model of how to succeed in a man's world, she at one point gave an interview to a working women's magazine and gave women 12 hints for getting along. And one of them is never cry. Never cry, because if you cry and you're a woman, it's going to destroy your career. Men could cry. So I took the title from that, and it was really reflective of so many moments in her life when she did display strength in the face of pain and suffering.
It's something I've even been told, even at my age and at this stage of my career, that advice continues on. It's interesting to think about. Couldn't have talked to a better person on this day. Jerry Roberts, thank you so much for your time.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.